What is up, guys? My name is Cameron O'Quinn. I'm going to start by saying that I am prior service, but I am not a firearms instructor, and I do not know everything. I'm sure there are people out there who believe they do, but even the smartest man in the world is smart enough to know that he doesn't know everything. So, that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. This is obviously, you can see Smith & Wesson M&P40. I'll go ahead and field strip this for you, and go ahead and kind of give you a breakdown. This is not loaded. I've already cleared it. Here's the +1, and here is the 15 double stack magazine. Even if it was loaded, don't worry, this is YouTube. You're not going to get shot. So, in just a moment, I'll be right back. Before I decide to field strip this, I want to go ahead and demonstrate a little something. I'm going to start by saying that this is a pain in the butt to take off. I stand corrected and decided to be nice this time. So you have the interchangeable grips, which come standard with any stock M&P40, which is great. I don't see anyone else other than M&P doing that. I use the medium grip because if you're like me, you got sausage fingers. That does two things. You got short fingers, short hand, small grip. Don't need a large, and small is too small. So this little tool right here also comes as a great little, I'm going to say pick, for lack of a better term, to kind of get this tiny yellow takedown lever. And if you look inside, if you own one, if you look inside your own M&P40, because you're definitely not going to be able to see it on the video. I've already tried. Then you can kind of reach down in there and pull that takedown lever down, because, like I said, I've got Oscar Mayer fingers, and they won't fit in there. So unlike the Glock or the SD, you don't have to pull the trigger to take it down. So anyway, it's got the traditional takedown lever that comes standard on most Smith & Wesson handguns. Now, one of the things I really do enjoy about this, aside from the easy takedown, and of course, before I get any further, you can do like Glocks and pull the trigger on the unloaded firearm to take it down, but for obvious reasons, that is not a good idea. If you notice, there's always a little bit of space in your M&P, which I don't know if it was done deliberately or not, but this thing is super easy to clean. So easy to clean. There's not much carbon buildup. It is a little bit dirty because I've let the oil sit in there and I haven't fired it for a while, so I need to get in there and get that gunk out. But some say it acts like a self-cleaning mechanism. I haven't seen that myself per se, but I can tell you that it is the cleanest handgun I've owned, and so far I've owned the M&P Compact, I've owned the SD40 VE, and now I've decided to stay with this. I've shot several firearms prior to owning one myself, and this is my favorite one. I'm not saying that because I have any loyalty. I love Glock. Glock's great. They're great guns. But just M&P's, it has my heart. So, moving on with that, recoil. I feel like this guide right here does a good job at mitigating some of that recoil, especially considering I carry a .40 caliber. But, I mean, it's a .40. It's pretty standard. For about $400, $500, $600, you kind of get what you pay for. One thing that really does get my goat, I'm gonna say, is you have the serrations here on the back, but not on the front like you would the SD40 or the SD9, which took a little bit of getting used to, because when I unload it, I had a habit of pulling that slide back from the front and letting the round fall into my hand. But that is not the case here. I mean, it can be done if you put enough force, because you have a bit of a taper here at the front, which you can put, you got plenty of clearance before your finger gets to that barrel, but you can pull it back and let that round fall in your hand. So, one thing I do love about this and particularly not because it's a Smith & Wesson. Again, it has what I like to call or consider an internal safety mechanism, which I'll demonstrate to you in just a moment. If you consider how many accidents are, negligent discharges or accidents happen with children, most of these accidents occur because there's a live round in the chamber and they strip the magazine, thinking that it's unloaded or that it's safe, and they go and play with it. The problem with that is, obviously, most firearms, and I say most because this being one of the exclusions, are now starting to come with or develop an internal safety mechanism. As you can see from this particular model, there's no outside safety. They do come ambidextrous for the release and for the slide lock and everything else. But what makes this particular one unique is you pop around in the chamber. I'm about to do a big no-no here in just a second, but like I said, don't worry, it's just YouTube and you're not going to get shot. So there is now a live round in the chamber. I'm going to strip this magazine, and what happens is that most children think that, okay, well, there's no magazine inside the firearm, but they don't realize that there is one in the chamber. And again, this one does come with the round indicator inside of it, and you can kind of look down there and see if one's in there or not. But if you're like me, I always pull it back just to make sure. And if you're like how everyone should be, you should treat every firearm as if it's loaded. I am going to break that rule here in about 3 seconds. So without further ado, now there is a round in that chamber, but the hammer will not fall. Now there's nothing wrong with the weapon itself. Alright, so now I have an empty firearm and an empty magazine. Now obviously this doesn't have a crisp reset like the Glock does, but you learn to live with it. The hammer falls perfectly fine. So reset the hammer. The hammer will not fall. Put the magazine back in. Again, nothing in it. The hammer falls. That is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love what Smith & Wesson did with that, and I really wish they started doing that with more firearms. If you look on either yours, I don't know if however many of you watching this video have, but I know the SD comes with a little label on the side that says capable of firing without the magazine inserted. This one does not have that label for that very reason. At the time of this video, my daughter is 7 weeks old, and I couldn't imagine being able to forgive myself if something like that had happened. So, 2 things. Keep your weapons in a safe place where they're not accessible to anyone but you or any other responsible adult in the house that has permission to access your firearms. And number 2, if, like all things, those little safety precautions that you've taken should fail, you want that last line of defense. In case any of you are wondering, I'm carrying Federal HST rounds. I'll do a review on those at a later time, and then maybe a live fire test review with the M&P. As far as accuracy goes, I've never had a problem with it. The reason I haven't mentioned accuracy in this video until now is because you're as good as the firearm that you use. Which firearm is the fastest? The one you practice with the most. And Bruce Lee said himself that I fear the man who has practiced one kick 1,000 times more than I fear the man who has practiced 1,000 kicks one time. So you can shoot all the guns in the world, and be an excellent shot, just keep to your training, stick to your basics, and stick to what you've learned. But if you practice with, say, a Springfield XD series, or if you practice with your Glock, the most common that I've seen that people carry, or your M&P40, you're going to be the most accurate with that. So if you put a Glock in my hand, I'm definitely not going to shoot as good as what I'm used to, and vice versa, or anyone else for that matter. So it's final thoughts. It's pretty standard. It's about what you'd expect for paying around $400, $500, or $600, depending on the bells and whistles that you get. Mine ran me about $6, because the internal safety mechanism came as an additional option. Some things I noticed that some people really care about, I don't really mind so much, is the dovetail in the back, which is nice if you're afraid to get your hand caught, which I would see them putting on that on the SD series for beginners rather than the M&P, but I could see how that makes a difference for some people who have their sight picture and their grip really, really high, and with the little tail on the back you can really get up there. Of course, it does also come with the Picatinny rail for any attachments, and the best part, I'd say for last, is one of these interchangeable grips you can order. I'm a little partial to Crimson Trace, just because I love their stuff and how reliable it is in my respective opinion. One of those grips come with a laser sight, so if I ever decide to pick that up, then I'll probably do a review on that. Like I said, out of 5 stars, I'd give it a 4.5, and that's coming from someone who really, really loves M&P. It's the greatest handgun I've ever owned, but it's not the greatest I've fired. So, the greatest I've fired, I probably couldn't be able to afford to own in 30 years or so. But I appreciate y'all stopping by, and I appreciate you watching my video. I hope you took something from this. That being said, have a good day.